tonight. All right, so welcome to our informational session for the Adjunct Professor Teacher Training Institute. Thank you so much for attending. I am Dr. Candace Chambers. I'm the head instructor, and I'll talk a little bit more about our other instructors later. But we're going to go ahead and get started with intros, or you can speak aloud if you like. But I just want to know where you're from, so city and state, and then what subject area you're interested in teaching as an adjunct professor. So you can put it in the chat, or you can speak aloud.
Hello, I'll start off. I don't know
Okay,
what's wrong with my video. I can't get my video to work, but
it's
I'm
okay.
Renee Zink. I am from Huntsville, Alabama, and I am interested in teaching criminal justice.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, let's see here. I got one in the chat. Let's see here. Okay, I don't know why your name is coming through as my name on the screen. Does it show your name, my name on your camera? What is your
It
name?
does. Sorry, I don't know why it's doing
I
that.
don't know, that is so weird. And
That
it's
is very
I think it's
interesting.
doing
I
that
will
for
change that right now.
everybody. Yeah, like also I'm like so I'm pushing people out of the meeting room because I'm thinking it's coming through as my own name, but I think it's making everybody my name. Technology is weird. Okay, let me tell people in the chat to please change their name to their own name. Oh, I don't know why it's doing that. Please change your name to your own name. All right, because it looks kind of weird on my end to see all of my names on the screen. Okay. All right. So let me go back here. So who is this? Shanika, nice to meet you. You're based in Raleigh, interested in teaching youth development. Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, awesome. Anybody else want to share their city and state and a subject area that you're interested in teaching?
Hi, Dr. Yolanda Dother, and I'm in
Okay.
Phoenix, Arizona,
Oh, nice. Okay.
and I want to teach healthcare leadership.
Healthcare leadership. We need that. All right, beautiful. Thank you. Nice to meet you. All
Mhm.
right. And then go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Dees. I am newly moved to Lawrenceville, Georgia, and I would like to teach. I'm a LCS licensed clinical social worker,
Mhm.
and I would like to teach social work.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. I'm sorry, guys. This technology is acting very wonky tonight, but we're gonna push through it. So, but thank you for introducing yourself. I was trying to change your name. Can you change your name to your name so that way if I have to call on you for
How do
something.
I do that? I am like
So,
not
it should be three dots in the corner, and you
okay.
should be able to rename yourself. If not, it's
Okay,
okay.
I got
Okay,
it.
all
Thank
right,
you.
cool. All right, and then we have Ty Wilson. She's from Chicago, and she wants to teach business and leadership development. Beautiful. All right, awesome. I just wanted to know who was in the room, so thank you for that. So we're gonna go to the agenda. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then also the company. Then we'll go into the overview of the institute itself, and I'll talk through what the curriculum looks like in detail. So it's a little bit more than what's on the website. But I'll go through what we actually talk about each week. We'll also talk about the deliverables that the participants create. Lastly, we'll end with logistics and Q&A. But as I'm talking through this content, if you have any questions about something, just put it in the chat or you can raise your hand and we can make it more of a conversation. All right, so just a little bit about me. I serve as a head instructor for the Institute. I've been teaching college, I would say 9 years because 2026 has just come in. And actually started teaching like I think it was the spring of 2026. So not almost, it's almost 10 years. But so 9 years consistently. I've taught at different institutions, and these schools are really because of my educational journey. So I started off teaching at University of Alabama because that's where I received my master's degree, and we were required to teach a class alone. So it wasn't teaching assistant. We were actually the head instructor. I taught at University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I'm still teaching there as well. Georgia Military College, I teach there. Central Piedmont Community College, I teach there in person. I've also taught at North Carolina A&T State University in person, and I taught incarcerated students at Ashland University. And so all the underlying schools, those were official adjunct positions that I was able to secure. So I've taught online, synchronous and asynchronous, also hybrid and in-person teaching. And then I've won some teaching awards. And then my subject area is English composition. And so I also teach professional and business writing for upperclassmen. So mostly composition for like freshmen, sophomores, and then more so juniors and seniors for those other subjects. I'm also licensed to teach English in Mississippi. So before I decided to teach college students, I was going to teach middle schoolers. And so I ended up getting my teaching license. But it's very helpful when you're thinking about even teaching adults because teaching is teaching or learning is learning. So that's that. And then I received my PhD in curriculum instruction from University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and then my English degree for my master's with the University of Alabama, and then also I graduated with my English degree from Jackson State University as well. Oh, okay. Shanika said she's a former middle school teacher. Awesome. I like it when teachers are in the building, principals and administrators. That's really cool. So this is my background as far as the scope for who I am. The company Education and Writing Services, I founded in 2017. And so when I first started the company, I was like, okay, I know I want to do editing services, help, high school students with their essays for college, everything's still dealing with writing. But since I have this educational background, I still wanted to have a workshop arm to the company. And so I would go to churches, nonprofits, universities, and teach. And so I was like, well, maybe I could teach on my own as well. And so that's where this concept came from as far as adjunct professorship. And so I've been doing this type of content and instruction since 2021. That's when I started teaching about adjunct professorship, since I had a few schools under my belt and a few different experiences. But that's the background for the company. And then the institute itself, I started it. The first cohort was actually this time last year because told myself like I think a comprehensive program would be very beneficial for people who are trying to get into the field and people who are currently in the field. And so we've gone through three cohorts so far, and here are the participants. The spring cohort will be our fourth one so far, and 32 people have participated from across the country. And so that's pretty much the background and scope of the institute in the company itself. All right. So before we hop into the curriculum of the institute, I just wanted to ground us in research. All right. And so adjunct professorship, you may hear a lot about it from colleagues, maybe, things you've learned on your own, or you may see things on the internet about adjunct professorship. And so it has its kind of pros and cons, right? But I pulled some articles about the state of adjunct professorship. One states that adjunct instructors in higher education continue to cope with job uncertainty. So that's one thing you may hear people say, well, why would I be an adjunct and, it's no job security, right? And so to that point, which I'll talk about in a few, a lot of people use adjunct professorship as a part-time professional opportunity, just like I do. And so if they're okay with, like if a class is canceled this semester and not, they can have it next semester. But that's one key concern is job uncertainty. The next one is adjunct professors face a constant struggle to not give up. A lot of times adjunct professors kind of operate in silos, whereas you're just in your class, nobody's really asking about like how it's going. You have these challenges. And so it's really hard sometimes to keep the momentum and motivation in the role. And so that's one struggle. And the last one is adjunct instructors deserve training. And that article is very interesting when they talk about, yes, they get the classes, but what happens after like that initial touch point when they're hired, right? What happens, let's say 2 months or let's say 2 weeks within the semester, then how do they get the training? So I just wanted to pull some of these key concerns that are occurring with adjunct professorship. So you can see pretty much where the content comes from to meet these demands that are of the role. But there are different sentiments that I've noticed as well. And you probably have some of these of people who want to get into the field and people who are currently in the field. One is I would love to teach, but I do not have any formal teaching experience. So a lot of people, they've been working their professional jobs, right, for 20, 15, 10, or 5 years. But they don't have any teaching experience that will allow them to be competitive when they're applying for adjunct positions. Another one is I've only taught in K-12 settings, right? How do I transfer that experience over to college? Or how do I even articulate and leverage that experience in my application materials? The next one is I enjoy training people at my job, leading youth groups with the nonprofit, and being a guest speaker. How do I transfer those skills to my application? That's very important because essentially you still are teaching or you're facilitating or you're even assessing. How do you transfer those skills over? The next one I hear, and you may have this experience, is that you keep applying, but you just never hear back. Okay. So that's a common one. Another one is I just graduated with my doctorate. How can I utilize it to make a difference? And so the last one is I've landed the position, but no one has given me information on how to navigate assessment, curriculum development, or student engagement. So you have the job and they're like, good luck. Or they're like, here's my email if you need anything. And so the students are looking at you like, like you need to know what you're doing and you're feeling inadequate because you don't have enough information to be able to facilitate the class. So those are a few things that make the why necessary for this work. So tonight we're going to talk through how the Institute can help with some of those sentiments and concerns. So we're going to jump into it. But before we do, I just wanted to show um my students, right? And so yes, we're thinking about a job or, opportunity, but the most important reason why we're doing this work is because of the students. All right. And so I just pulled a few of these pictures. We always take in the class pictures. And so it's really cool. Like even two of these kids in the top corner up here, they reached out this week just to say hello. Right. And so like that's the purpose of why we do this is because we have students that need and our assistance and also our guidance. So before I get into content, I want to hear back from you all. What is your why? So you can talk or you can put in the chat. What are your reasons? Like, why do you want to be an adjunct professor? Do you have any concerns, either getting into the field or when you secure it? So maybe like, two or three responses. And you can type it in the chat or you can talk out loud. It's up to you.
So, Dr. Chairman,
I wanted to,
oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
oh, sorry. I'm a social worker, and
Okay.
I'm licensed in 3 states, and I
Okay.
am a supervisor at a community health agency. And
Hmm.
one of the things that I'm seeing is that a lot of the um interns and also, they need more additional support, and so I want to be able to support them both
Okay.
clinically and while they're getting their education. Also,
Mhm.
representation matters.
Right.
And there are a lot of us and a lot of Black women, specifically, that are in the social work field, but there's not a lot of mentors, especially as it pertains to intersectionality, cultural
Hmm.
competence, and things like that. And I'm a graduate of UNLV.
Hmm.
I got my BSW there, and I had a lot of Black social work, mentors, and so I want to give back in that way.
Nice. Awesome. That's some very important work. Thank you for sharing that. Shanika, you have the floor.
Hi everyone. I figured I'd take myself off, put myself on camera to talk. But to be honest, I wanted a side hustle that came natural to
Um,
me.
I like that.
Um, I'm a former educator. I work in local government here in North Carolina,
Okay.
and I'm working on my PhD. And I was like, I do workshops and all these great things with adults. I want to continue that, and I don't
Hmm.
want to leave my main job, but I want to
Hmm.
make some extra money.
Hmm. I totally get
So yeah, and
it.
I don't want to leave my house.
I totally get it.
All of those things.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see. I have one in the chat. She's from Toronto. Business administration leadership. Just received my doctorate, no teaching experience, but passionate about teaching and helping others understand complex concepts in a down-to-earth way. I love that because that's important. If we're going to be able to reach our students, especially our Gen Z students, we have to make sure that we're relatable. So thank you for sharing that. Um, all right. Anybody else would like to share?
I'll share a little bit with you live. So,
Okay.
so I'm a healthcare executive
Okay.
who's going to pivot. I
Okay.
went back and did the unthinkable. I'm a pharmacist by training, and so I have my pharmacy degree, and I also have my master's in business. And I went back to get an EdD, and I finished in 22,
Wow.
so or 23, and because I want to teach, and I
Okay.
realized that every day in my job, I actually just stopped working as the assistant vice president of pharmacy services at Nemours Children. So I've been in children's hospitals. And the best part of my day is teaching emerging leaders
Hmm.
and healthcare leadership. They sort of throw you in there and say, okay, figure it out. You
Mm-hmm.
know, nurses, doctors, pharmacists, we don't have a clue how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent my time, of course, making sure the pharmacy ran, but the best part of my day is raising emerging leaders. And so that's why I did this at D. Now I'm trying to figure out how do I use that
Hmm.
in an adjunct way. And I can teach in a couple of environments, right? The business curriculum as well as now the doctoral curriculum. I'm a content expert for some of the
Hmm.
dissertations. I had 3 students that graduated.
Okay.
But now I'd like to do classroom and I just don't know how to get in, like you were
Gotcha.
saying.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's the healthcare side of the world.
Nice. Wow, you have really extensive experiences. That's amazing. No, like I'm sitting here like I'm a student in your class, like listening to you talk. Like I'm like, talk more so I can learn more about.
People were telling me you should retire. I said, no, I have another mission. This is my
Right.
mission, and I've ever done it. And
Right.
I want to really help, young people figure out what it is they want to do, but
Hmm.
early. But we definitely need leaders in healthcare, and
Hmm.
they just don't train us to do that. They just put you in there and say, hey, figure it out. So,
Right. Exactly.
right. And so some combination of classroom and advising students would be really great. And when they
Hmm.
graduate or they go on to be vice presidents and they have been mentees of mine, that's when I get really high, right?
Yes, I like that. Thank you for sharing that. All right. And then Ty says she wants to teach as a part-time job. She currently works at university as academic coach. She has 3 master's degrees and she's at the tail end of her doctorate. And she's passionate about wanting to help others to apply their skills and background to teaching. Wait, sorry. No, I am passionate about helping people. Yeah, I said it right. Helping others oh, she wants to apply. Yes, what I thought. Her skills and background in teaching. So awesome. I love that. So thank you for sharing that because that's important as far as your why. All right, so let's jump into it. So this institute is designed for aspiring professors, also current professors with little to no teaching experience. I combine the research-based and practice-based information. So I like to look at what the research and what best practices have been published concerning teaching, and then also what are some tangible things that aspiring teachers and current professors can utilize in the classroom. So it's not just all my experiences; it's really a lot of like structured information that's provided and so hopefully it'll foster a sense of community. Most of the time, around week 4, it starts to be a little family amongst the people who are participating. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to encourage, educate, and empower our students. All right. So let me jump into the curriculum. So the institute is 8 weeks. All right. It's once a week and it's virtual, just like we're on Zoom now. And so it will run from February 25th to April 15th. And here are the topics. So, week 1 is the first week, of course, and that week we talk about preparing for the role. So, in that week, we really take a deep dive into how do you figure out the different subject areas that you can teach. Oftentimes, people know of some that they would like to teach, but there may be some other ones that they will qualify for based on their educational background that they can teach. That week, also, people determine, like, oh, well, I have a degree in computer science, but I want to teach history, right? And so they kind of understand, like, oh, well, because I don't have the education in history, maybe that's why I haven't been hearing back from people concerning my application. That actually happened one of the institutes. So you get to see, like, okay, let me make sure that what my education is, it really aligns with the job role that is published or is advertised. In that week, we also talk about your application documents, specifically the resume or CV. You'll determine which one will be best for you, the teaching philosophy, and also the cover letter. And then lastly, where to find roles. So we take a deep dive into all these different strategies to find positions. So that way you have those tools under your belt. The second week is called Sharing What You Know. And so we really get into curriculum and syllabus development. So let's say that you get the role and now you're here, right? And so we talk about, let's say that you get the role and they didn't give you a curriculum, right? And that can happen. They've given you learning objectives and now you have to really develop out the curriculum. Or they may give you a course description and you have to figure out the learning objectives and what the scope of the class is going to look like. That's happened to me before. And so we also talk about, let's say that they give you the full curriculum, and then how do you actually implement and engage with the curriculum to make sure that you understand the content that you're tasked to teach. So that week That's what we go through there. And then also we talk about syllabus policies, ones that work and then ones that are effective for you as an adjunct. Sometimes you won't get that information from your chair, whoever hired you. So we'll go through policies. The next week is, or even how to even create the syllabus. We even go through that. The next week is week 3. That's setting the pace. So that's scheduling and lesson planning. So we take a dive into how do you actually pace your course out. So you have these large learning objectives in this large curriculum, but how do you actually pace it out week by week, whether it's online or in person? And then how do you lesson plan, whether it's an in-person class that you have to determine, whether it's an hour class, a 3-hour class. I had one lady say she had to teach a 5-hour class, and that took me for a loop. But we still have to figure it out. So lesson planning. And she, they told her that in the job description, right? And so, like, how do you pace out information? But also, how do you pace out information in a virtual setting as well? If you have to create it, but also if you have to teach it. So, how do you navigate that? Week number 4 is virtual and in-person student engagement. And so that week is one of my favorites because we talk about how do you get students engaged, whether you're teaching traditional college students, adult learners, even people who are incarcerated, like, or even, if you're doing field placements, like how do you engage these different populations of students? How do you get to know your students? Make sure you're still acknowledging the human side of who they are, whether they're in person or also virtually. The next week is navigating the technology. It's the tech week. All right. So we dive into different learning management platforms and what that looks like. Blackboard, Canvas, Moodle, all the ones that you may hear about. We'll talk about those. And then we also talk about different tech tools. So, different apps that you could use in the classroom space or even virtually. And we have a pretty extensive discussion about artificial intelligence because that's a big deal. So every institute, I have to redo that section of my part. Well, almost every week, for all the weeks, I redo a section because education is changing so fast. And so that week we talk through, AI and what that looks like for you as a professor, to have to embrace it, but also combat it in some ways. Next is week 5. That's our assessment week. And so assessment is very important when we're talking about teaching. And so we talk about rubrics, different tools that you can use in the classroom. Sometimes as an online instructor, you're given the rubric. You don't have to necessarily create it, but how do you actually make sure you're being fair and equitable to your students? So we'll talk through that as well. Week number 7 is taking care of yourself, just looking at the nuances of adjunct professorship. So we talk through pay, like what do some of these positions pay? How do you see if that's going to be worth your time or not? Also thinking about course load, because sometimes you may get hired and they're like, okay, how many classes can you take? And you've never taught before. And you're like, how do I figure that out? And so we'll talk through that as well. And then lastly is week 8, and we talk through interview questions that are generally asked, different ways to once you get into the role, like all like the first day things and like kind of like ready, set, go. And then also that week, people are able to present their answers to common interview questions that adjuncts have to answer and how they, would pitch themselves in an interview. And so that's the week of graduation. So this is the full scope of the 8-week institute. And so it'll run, like I said, from February until April. Another key point of the Institute are the deliverables. And so what these are documents that participants create, or they at least have the option to create, for me to review and give feedback on. So the first deliverable set includes the resume or CV, the cover letter, and the teaching philosophy. We would have gone over how these documents look, and I also provide samples for you guys to have. And so what participants do is upload them into Google Classroom, and then I provide either verbal or written feedback on their documents. So that way you can have someone to look over them for someone who looks over these documents quite often. And usually 9.9 times out of 10, there's something that people can change on these documents to allow their documents to align more with the positions that they're seeking. All right. And then the last deliverable set is the sample syllabus, the assignment sheet, and the rubric. And so you get a chance to identify a class that you will qualify to teach. Try to identify if they have language on the website about the class, and you can actually create a sample assignment rubric like I said, in syllabus. You can play around with some policies that you're thinking about implementing, and I'll also review those as well. And so these deliverables are useful because not only can you apply to positions with the top row, but in the interview, you can tell people or explain to whoever's interviewing you that you have these sample documents on that bottom row to allow you to stand out from the crowd. So all sessions are 1 hour once a week via Zoom. They are on Wednesdays and Thursdays. What that means is I come here on Wednesday and Thursday and I teach the same content, right? So if one week Wednesday works better for you, you just pop in on Wednesday. If the next week Thursday works better for you, you pop in on Thursday. The content is the same. The guest speakers change depending on when they sign up, but the content is the same. But you would get all Zoom links for all sessions before we even get started, and then you can decide what week works best for you. And so only 2 absences throughout the whole journey, just because I'm only going to give out the recorded session 2 times. So if you can make at least 6 of the 8, even if your camera's off and you can't really communicate, that's fine too. But only 2 times to miss. All right. One thing here, other logistics. So the first week is really when we're really talking about the groundwork, the application materials, finding the position. So I'm the only speaker, or introductions, right? Like kind of like a first day of class in college. So I'm the only speaker. It's kind of our time to bond on that first week. But weeks 2 through 6 is where our guest speakers come in to speak. I present for the first 30 minutes, so we have a conversation for the first 30 minutes. And then they come in on the back end to discuss or speak to the topic that we've talked about that particular week. So whether it's, technology, they'll come in and talk about how they leverage technology in different ways in their classrooms. And what I like about the guest speakers, they all come from different backgrounds. So some of them teach purely online, some of them teach in person and online. Some of them, like they have different subject areas like computer science, education, project management, the whole works. And I also have 2 student speakers who usually come in because we can't really talk about teaching without talking about our students. So they come in and give their perspective on whatever topic it is for that particular day or week. Also, the guest speakers usually will let you know how they got into the role. So all the guest speakers usually got into teaching in some different way, and it's really helpful for participants to hear those different avenues of how they entered the field. 2 more things here. Every week there's a discussion forum in Google Classroom. You can participate or you don't have to, but I think it's really cool. They're really simple questions, but it just allows some dialogue on the forum in Google Classroom as well. All right, so I'm almost done. The technology flops kind of messed my time up in the beginning, but I'm almost done. So here's some common questions that I hear people ask about with the Institute. I thought I'd just like kind of type them here. One is like, if I'm a teacher, how would this training be beneficial? And I would say that you probably will have some familiarity with like kind of pedagogical techniques. So like we talk about Bloom's taxonomy, like we'll talk about differentiating instruction. So some of these terms you may hear. The key of it is that we're positioning it more in a college context. And what does that look like for our college students? Or in, like we don't have parents, right? We don't have to deal with parents. We don't have to deal with is Common Core still around? I'm not sure. But we don't have to deal with like, this larger core standards that you have to meet. It's a little bit more flexibility. So because of that, that's why it's beneficial. Another one is I've heard that colleges train adjuncts, and why is this training necessary? I've heard that question before. So generally, it depends on your school, but even from what I've heard from other instructors, the colleges, it depends. But some colleges will at least provide you with maybe a training on how to use the LMS, so the learning management platform, like how to use Brightspace or Blackboard or Canvas. But as far as like how to teach or how to pace and how to have policies, that's kind of a gray area. All right. And a lot of adjuncts are just thrown into the sea and they have to figure it out. So if you hear that somewhere and somebody mentions that, maybe ask them, hey, what type of training did your school provide? And then you can kind of hear what they say. But 9 times out of 10, they'll help you in the beginning, like literally before the class starts. But after that, it's just kind of you and the students. Do I have to have my camera on? You do not have to have your camera on during the training. And then is it a bang for the buck? I'll talk about that in a second. And then lastly, will the training land me an adjunct role? That is a common question that I get. And so here's my answer to this. Number one, I can't control the hiring process. All right. So many things go on after you apply to a job that I literally don't have control over that. But what I do have control over is providing you with information that prepares you strategically to apply for the role. It also allows you to position yourself in a more knowledgeable way when you do have an interview or when you do express yourself in a cover letter. And then when you get the role, now you're more prepared to sustain yourself in the role. All right. So that's where the benefit comes in for the adjunct position. And also, you show up to an interview talking about assessment and rubrics and, Canvas and, learning objectives. You're in the game, because you actually have some knowledge about teaching. All right. So we're almost done here. Application logistics to enroll. There's a registration form on the website. You will pay in full, or you can pay the deposit. The institute is $395 for the 8 week experience. I kind of think about it like $50 a week because it's 8 week experience. Kind of give or take because it doesn't round up to 400, but it's like $50 a week. But three options. You can pay it all at once. You can pay half now and half by February the 4th. And then PayPal has like a pay in four option that people use, and it's no interest, it's no gimmick. It's really easy. You just click the button and then you just pay in four payments. I have clients who do that all the time. And then only a set number because I have to review all of the application materials or deliverable sets. Only take so many in the institute. All right. And then here's our feedback. I just pulled some testimonials and I just thought they were cool. Some people they kind of talk about the balance of it. So like the engagement for us talking, discussion forums, the guest speakers. I try to mix it up, kind of like I do in my classroom. So that's something I've heard. Also that they feel more prepared to apply for the role, and then just more so like the realness of it with us, just having these tangible, realistic conversations. All right, y'all. I'm done with my spiel. So, does anybody have any questions or concerns that I can answer while we're here live? All right, then. Well, if not, what I will do is I will distribute when this finishes processing. Oh, let me see. I think I have one in the chat. Give me a second. Oh, she said thank you. You're welcome. When this finishes processing, I will send out the recording in case you want to, review the information again. I also distribute a coupon code, and you can use it for your registration. Only the people who signed up will get that particular code. But if you have any questions or concerns, just email me. All right. The email that I email you guys with, just email me, and then I can clarify anything. So I'm not here to sell this, I mean, it is what it is. It's a program. I have to put a lot of work into it as well because I have to teach 2 times a week for, an hour. So it's not just a money grab. I still have to put a lot of planning into this. So if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm an open book as far as, and then if you're like, I just want to know if this is right for me, I'll be honest with you to let you know like yay or nay, right? Or something else may be better. So just let me know on that. It's no issue. But other than that, you guys, I'm done. And I appreciate you guys for stopping by. And so you all have a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
You're welcome.